Mute themselves.
I'd just like to welcome everyone to another one of our class Zoom sessions. And I'm pleased to moderate this evening with a conversation with our good friend, Mark Robertson, a friend to the class and friend to many of us. He will talk about his 10 years, the last 10 years at Williams, and weave in some thoughts on Williams' strategic plans, current trends in higher education, the roles of art and athletics at Williams, Williams admissions and Questbridge, where he's done a lot of work, and post 50th reunions, and maybe a little bit about our upcoming 60th reunion. So I'd just like to begin with a brief review of Mark's biography. Impressive. He returned to Williams in 2015, having graduated with a class of 2002. And he currently serves as Assistant Vice President for College Relations. In this role, he helps lead the college's fundraising and friend-raising efforts through strategy and planning, communications, and management of the division. He previously served as Director of Milestone Reunion Programs and worked with 50th reunion classes and, of course, with our class on all aspects of reunion planning and gifts. Mark came to Williams from Granville, Ohio, and majored in political science with a concentration in environmental studies, and served as editor-in-chief of the Williams Record and as a junior advisor. After working as a journalist after college, he returned to Williams the first time to serve as assistant director of admission and focused on early efforts to recruit larger numbers of high ability, low income students. He subsequently earned his master's degree from the Harvard Graduate School of Education and worked at Harvard for 7 years in faculty affairs, development, and education policy research. Mark lives in Williamstown with his wife Anna and 2 children, George and Ruth, 9 and 2 respectively, and 3 of George and Ruth's grandparents. When not working or parenting, he enjoys watching his beloved Liverpool football club, brewing beer, and building community on and off campus. So, with that, Mark, please give us your last 10 years at Williams.
Well, thank you, Harry. If we want to scrap it all and talk about soccer or brewing beer, we could just do that too. But prepared some slides, and I am just honored to join you guys tonight. I was telling my son on the way out tonight, he's like, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "A bunch of old friends from the class of '67." And he sort of said, "Oh, okay, you stay in touch with these people. That's great." So it does feel like just reconnecting with friends. I got to know so many of you through your 50th and have stayed in touch. And a couple of years ago, of course, saw you or sort of seen several of you over the years or stayed in touch on the phone. So it's good to be back together. And I really appreciate the invite. Thank you, Harry. Alan, thank you so much for all the help in prepping. And it was great to see Larry and Ron and Huff sort of in the prep too. So I'm going to share my screen, and I prepared some slides to talk a little about my experience and sort of bring you up to speed. My thought is I'd spend a little bit of time sharing, and then both about sort of my work, what I do, and some updates from Williamstown, what's up at the college, and then really open it up, make this a conversation, both about things that you're interested in going on at Williams in higher ed, as I can answer them, but also about your own experience with Williams and with each other and how the college can continue to support that. I want to save actually quite a bit of time tonight to almost run this as a focus group to hear from you about some of the things that we're thinking about with engagement of post 50th alumni. So maybe I'll start. Again, Harry, thanks for the intro. You covered some of the things in my Williams story, but as you said, I'm from Granville, Ohio, a small town outside just east of Columbus. I'd never heard of Williams until my junior year of high school when I was presented this purple dictionary, which still sits in my office, from the Alumni Association of Central Ohio. And I thought any college that's, I say cool enough to give out at that point, cool enough to give out a dictionary, a purple dictionary, and come all the way out from Columbus to give it to my little high school, graduating about 100 in my senior class, must be worth looking at. So I sent off the forms. Ended up my final decision was between Williams and that other school about an hour and a half from here that stole our colors, and I clearly made the right decision. And you can see, I aspired to lots of things at Williams. I played tennis and soccer and things in high school, but I was pretty quickly knew that my path was going to be Williams academics. And this is my family is sort of settling in. And I had a fantastic Williams experience, and really what it was all about, I think, like for you guys, were the relationships that I had, friendships and adventures and learning together, whether we were hiking in the White Mountains or that's me next to Ernie Banks. I was thrilled to get to meet Ernie with President Shapiro, and actually Faye Vincent brought them to us. Brought both Ernie Banks and Larry Doby, two legends, to campus senior year when we got to do things like that. It was really eye opening in every single way, and Williams transformed sort of the way I sort of thought about what was possible beyond. It was really exciting that way. And these are my lifelong friends. You can see, we stay in touch. Many of us volunteer for the college ourselves. Occasionally, we win a trophy, not often, but we try our best and try to give back in all the ways that we can. But let me say, how did I get interested in higher education? Funny enough, I think it was from the newspaper, probably from my family too. My parents are educators, but I was editor of the Record. My for a year, junior and senior year, and it was an all-in proposition back then. And we took ourselves really seriously, as I think editors of student newspapers should. We thought really hard about what was going on at Williams, sort of in all ways, on the faculty and the student life, et cetera. And we thought, together, what mattered at the college. I became really just interested in the issues of higher ed, and as Harry mentioned, I went out briefly into journalism, but I was covering, not the stories of the things I was interested in. What I was really interested in was in higher education. And I found my way back to it pretty quickly. Another thing that really stuck with me in terms of threads in my career was that my education was supported by others. I was honored to be a recipient of 57's scholarship with some of my peers, and we got to interact with them, over dinners and things like that, and get to know that great class as well. And I have a certificate right across from my office as a reminder of paying it forward. And so when I think about what I do now, it was very much being part of a culture of generosity, of giving back here, of time, in this case, treasure, and wanting to be part of that going forward within higher ed. So my first job back at Williams in the early 2000s was in the admissions office. I was in Bascom House. I worked for Dick Nesbitt, who some of you might know, who had just taken over as director of admission after Tom Parker had left. And I understand that you guys have already heard from Tom and from Phil Smith. They were both people I know very, very well, and so they've taught many of us everything we know about college admission and the possibilities. But it was a moment you sort of might remember back in the mid 2000 or early 2000s, mid 2000s, when a lot of colleges were being sort of scrutinized for the populations on campus and the sort of socioeconomic representativeness of those student bodies vis-a-vis the national population. We had the great project on higher education at Williams with Gordon Winston, rest in peace, Cappy Hill, David Zimmerman, others, Morty Shapiro, of course, who were studying these topics. And our office had the chance, and many of us, to work on, I'd say, the first serious effort to think hard in a coordinated fashion about recruiting high ability, low income students. And I got to do that for 4 years. I got to travel all across the Midwest and other parts of the world. Gordy was so wonderful to host me in Kansas City. And among other places, I got to go and meet talented high school students, and bring into Williams. And when I left in 2007, it was with my soon-to-be wife. And it was really an opportunity for me to go deeper into what I loved about higher education. And I went to the Graduate School of Education at Harvard, and it was one of the places that had a program focused on sort of higher ed, and not just sort of being an administrator of higher ed, but higher ed is sort of an enterprise as an organization. How do you think about is important to our culture, et cetera. I absolutely loved it. And I love the culture of that place, that school so much that I decided to stick around. And I ended up staying at the university for 7 years and did a range of things. We were, I got to do all sorts of things, and I knew faculty members who were sort of empowering me to work on cool projects, but developing and fundraising and marketing new programs. The EDLD here was the first of its kind education leadership program that was between the business school, the Kennedy School, and the ed school, the teacher leadership program that we developed sort of first in the nation. Really exciting, and I got to play sort of all the parts of it, including the fundraising for it. But also got to teach, which was incredible. I, taught from my own experience about communications and about sort of data use in higher education, and the relationships were awesome. That's a picture of the vaunted Harvard Ed Sox, who were champions of one year for the staff league, which is pretty cool. The last 2 years when I was at Harvard, I went back and I would say to my roots, but I worked on a series of research projects led by a professor named Chris Avery, who had been a mentor of mine, focused on, I guess you call it sort of big questions, sort of big scale research, econometric research, thinking about questions like how do we support larger shares of talented students end up at well-matched colleges? How do we deliver counseling supports in new and different ways, virtual text messaging, et cetera, for students who have few counseling resources in their schools and communities, as well as the efficacy of various remedial approaches to help more students become college ready. This was awesome work. I was loving doing it, et cetera. And we had a lot of successful projects in a pretty short order. But we ultimately made the decision in 2015 to return to Williamstown. And there was really one reason. Oh wait, that shouldn't have gotten in there. Not Taconic. Oh yeah, sorry, it was George. Yeah, no, I was kidding. No, it was our son George. He had been born in the spring of 2015, and we thought the chance to raise him in a place like this kind of community, would just be special. It's how I grew up. My wife is from Wyoming. We're sort of open air people. And it was a college that I loved, and my wife had worked here for a couple of years as well. That's where I met her. So we came back here, and what was fantastic about it is not only was it a great fit for our family, but professionally, it was just fantastic. Some of you know the folks in this picture, Chris Robert and Darlene Alderman, who I worked with closely in the 50th program, and then you got to know in your own reunion, Margaret McComish, our gift planning director. Just fantastic colleagues and remarkable partnerships with alumni like you. And as Harry said in the intro, this work is about fundraising and fundraising. Not making any assumptions about how anyone wants to get involved, but always asking the question and doing it the right way. There's a quote that stuck with me, and I wonder. I think this might be from Bill Cundaniel. So, Bill, you tell me if this sounds right. But ask for money and get questions, and ask questions, you get money. That's been sort of an aphorism that stuck with me throughout all this weird work. I absolutely thought of myself as someone who channeled the positive energy of others into the college in whatever way that they wanted, including through gifts. And it's been an honor. In that role in the 50th, got to support major investments in today's students. I still do, whether it's financial aid and professorships, faculty support, curriculum development, internships, research opportunities, and more. And I got to meet you guys. And so here's a great shot of the trip. Ted was so kind to host, and you referenced at the beginning in Gettysburg, the first time I met many of you, most of you. And again, there's Ted in action, as well as Turner leading us in Pickett's charge. Just great memories. Soon after that, the next summer, joined a large group of classmates and spouses and partners in the traditional pre-50th trip to Oxford in the WIPO program. I think this is just the best of what we do in college relations. Students and alumni coming together and just joy and deep connection across generations. A lot of fun there. Of course, many of you stepped forward to help make your 50th such a memorable experience. You received the baton from 66 and really took it and ran with it, and planned something just extraordinary. I love these class pictures like yours, all of you there together. I love this one as well. Planned fantastic events. There's Alan up at the podium in the front. And this is what it's all about, reconnection across lifetime friendships. And I'm so happy that I got to be part of that with you guys. You guys are recognized for many successes, for great turnout, of classmates getting so many back, for your contributions through your class gift. There's Bob winning the Robertson Cup for his dedication over so many years. And you chose to invest in two very special ways in the college, through your class gifts, through your memorial scholarship, and the fund for faculty recruitment, which were and are just really substantial and important investments in the college. Other projects I got to work on, I'll sort of share the other side, classes on the other side. Got to work on this incredible building, the first living building challenge building, sort of well beyond LEED in terms of its sustainability certifications. The class of 66 environmental center. The class of 68 after you worked on the career center. Other classes, this is a project that 71 did, the Veteran Scholar Support Fund to support military veterans who were enrolling in the college. And I put on the right side, I'm still working on this one and many others, sort of finding additional support for housing opportunities for those students. There's always something interesting to work on at a college. It's full of possibilities, this one. I'll say I'm also reminded of the power of the Williams experience and how happy I am that we moved back here, when I get to interact with current students. We invite them over to our house. These are my interns. I had 3 student interns work in our office this January. And what I love is that for them and for us, and I'd say the same for you when you get to interact with the students, they get not only professional advice and practical advice, but they get life advice. So one of my dear friends, classmate, has been a really successful strategy consultant, worked in finance and sort of all over the world. I had him zoom in and give these guys some sort of tips on how to think like a consultant, et cetera. And at the end, one of them asked, hey, what kinds of skills do I need to be developing? Like, how do I need to be really good to work in this profession? And he said, and I've known this guy a long time, and I was kind of surprised, but very happily surprised. He said, be the kind of person that everyone wants on your team. We can teach you the rest. And that's the kind of life advice that when we get intergenerational connection, that often comes out. Not to say these guys aren't learning the rest as well. They certainly are. But to get that from someone as successful as they are, it mattered. They all reflected on that. So let me share a little about what I'm sort of up to now in my new role. So this has been about 2.5 years that I've been in this different role. And just to sort of a reminder how the college is organized. You see us down there, the vice president for college relations. We're a group that supports much of the external relations work for the institution. And here's our current configuration. There's a handful of us who work in what's called the vice president's office, 27 in our development function, 23 in the alumni engagement office. That includes the class managers and the alumni fund now, 17 in sort of our data and operations team, and 14 in the career center. So that's the group that I get to work on and help lead. It's an extraordinary team that works with 30,000 alumni roughly around the world, as well as our current students and families. And this is our mission statement, which is meant to capture sort of all the things that we get to do. We try to build possibility and make connection sort of at our core. And I love the end. So we empower all to create a thriving future from a vibrant past. Sort of always looking back as we look forward. So as Harry said, sort of major things that I work on now, sort of strategy and planning for our group, including I'll mention in a minute something that we're working on that's kind of a non-campaign campaign model, calling initiative-based fundraising, helping build that out. and current projects that, again, I'll talk about maybe a little later. Sort of all grant financial aid, which President Mandel announced a couple of years ago. The new art museum project, athletics and well-being, winter study, sort of revamping that. Like I said, internships, student experience kinds of things, as well as communications for our group, alumni engagement strategy, and management of the office. So, sort of, that's a little bit of the who and the what, but the how. I hope this reads sort of, if you've been around Williams long enough, sort of these things don't change all that much. Sort of we work with and through and sort of on behalf of volunteers, and we try to connect with an incredible devoted Legion volunteers. It's the envy of every peer school. Trust me, I've gotten more calls. I got more calls as the director of the 50th than just about any colleague here. Said, how do you do it? And what's the secret? I said, well, you should have planted those seeds 50 years ago. That's the secret. Is that this is a culture of participation, giving back. And we've sustained it, thankfully, 50 plus, since you guys were here, and that still lives here. But we think hard about connecting by class, by sort of life stage, by affinity or interest, or team or club, et cetera, as well as geography. And we have this kind of special thing for a little over a decade with this relationship through the 68 Center for Career Exploration, to sort of bring mentorship and alumni relations back to the student experience a lot more. One thing I've been working on a lot the last couple of years is thinking about particular, I call it sort of segments or groups of alumni sort of by stage, thinking about what sorts of approaches we can offer that are going to be most resonant and meet them where they are. These are just three that we sort of thought about. My cohort, so to speak, the pre-25th, very different in terms of our time and needs, and also our patterns of philanthropy than others. Post 50th, and we'll hopefully spend a lot of time on that later, is one area that I've been pushing pretty hard since I was working in the 50th, to say our old model cannot work, because the 50th reunion is just one more step for a lot of alumni in a lifetime of engagement. It's a really, really, really important step, but many say I don't want that to be my last step. I want to engage with my classmates and with the college in important ways for much longer than that. And maybe I'll just go through these quickly. So this is something I have been thinking about a lot out of the college's strategic plan. So in 2021, President Mandel released a strategic plan for Williams that included a number of initiatives, many of which required no fundraising, just sort of reorganization, reprioritization, et cetera. But a number that do and are pretty major and are being developed sort of on different timelines. So unlike a traditional capital campaign where you might imagine going out with all of your priorities being known, in some ways we didn't know exactly where the faculty, where the board, et cetera, was going to prioritize new project work and new initiatives and new fundraising. So we're trying to move to a more nimble model that allows us to raise the right kinds of money for the right projects, especially a series of capital projects in the next decade or more. And so this is what we're calling it, sort of a new approach to fundraising here. This is also meant in some ways to move away from, I'd say, just the scoreboard of fundraising and the numbers of fundraising, and much more toward the impact. And I mean that's always, I think, our job in when we work in this space and development, is to talk about the impact that individuals can have through their philanthropy. But old campaign models, as well as they work for a long time, different generations have very different attitudes toward them. And so this idea that we can sort of flex into individual projects and find individuals who want to support them over time is exciting. So here's something of what it looks like for us as we're sort of projects are coming on, as they're being developed and planned, and then they sort of hit our desk to communicate about them, to find volunteers, to find engagement around them. And ultimately raise the gifts that we need to secure to make them possible. Again, other things I do, I mentioned communications. I get to work on a whole suite of different kinds of things. I get to work with Maud as she's going out and talking to alumni associations and sort of deciding which priorities to talk about, how to frame those. Think about the magazine content, think about how we're publicizing in different projects, and then communicating with alumni through the web and newsletters. I also have gotten to serve on a number of kind of fun and interesting committees. 5 years ago, I was on a group called the Ad Hoc Committee on Inquiry and Inclusion, focused on speaker invitations, something as a proxy for sort of free expression and open engagement on campus, which was fascinating. I'm currently on two other ones. One on the JA program, sort of refining as we get to the centennial of the JA program, sort of refining what that model should look like today. It's been a long, venerable model that's changed a lot over time, and just make sure we continue to keep it strong for the next generation, as well as this big project that's focused on athletics and well-being, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I hope. So again, living here in Williamstown is fantastic. This is my family, pre-Ruth, my daughter, a couple of years ago. As I mentioned, my parents both live here now, and my mother-in-law as well. So we have a lot of built-in babysitting support, which is fantastic. Friendships and hobbies and things like that, very easy to do, and you don't have to commute all the time. This is my band, the Porch Pirates, played during COVID all around town on everyone's porch. A lot of fun. Community engagement, as I said before. So the idea of giving back, coaching soccer, trivia host for the Berkshire Nursing Families, one of our maternal care organizations in town. Got that coming up in a couple weekends. We'll raise about $80,000, we hope, for maternal care here in the Berkshires. My children's preschool, got to work on that during COVID. That was a challenge, but we did that, and block parties and things like that. It's a good life here with the family, outdoors. Most weekends, most weeks, as much as we can. And there they are. That's Okisu Grounded. So I'll stop there, and thank you.
Well, I think, Mark, you've obviously covered a wonderful 10 years of support of Williams and what you're doing currently. Do you want to talk a little bit about Williams admissions in Westbridge, what you're doing there or have done?
Absolutely. So Questbridge, and I don't know if Tom, when you spoke with Tom Parker, if he talked much about the organization. He actually was one of the founding admissions directors in supporting this organization. It's effectively a nonprofit that acts as sort of an intermediary between colleges and high schools, college counseling offices, to try to find what I would call are the missing one-offs. That was that paper maybe you saw at the top that my former professor wrote. These really, really talented kids who just don't who come from really low-income families and tend not to apply to colleges in very strategic ways to maximize what their financial aid benefit might be and what the quality of education might be. So Williams partnered with Questbridge back in the mid 2000s, and it is now any given year, 10 to 15% of the student body at Williams are identified and or apply through the Questbridge program. I think they're up to 45, 50 institutions now, many of the, quote, top institutions in the country, public and private, major universities, et cetera, that have financial aid programs that this allows them to communicate really effectively to students. So I'll share a little bit here. Let me share again. Because I wanted to share my personal story with this. There we go. So when we started Questbridge, we had no idea how it would work. So it's 2004, I guess, we became a Questbridge partner. We had no idea if this model was going to work at all. And I remember reading through the first applications and saying, where were these students? Where were they before? They're unbelievable. They're so talented. Why and how aren't they applying to Williams? And it wasn't until they got messages from this organization that said, hey, here are 40 schools that you might qualify for. They can use language we can't, sort of, full tuition, scholarship, et cetera. Now, asterisk is need blind, et cetera. But it was a really, really effective way to communicate to low-income families that they could afford a prestigious selective or private college. And I was looking back just in preparation for tonight. The magazine did a story about some of these scholars a few years ago. The sort of the 10 years out, the class of 2009, what was their experience? What have they got on to do? I just grabbed some of these. They're students I knew or worked with. I mean, unbelievably successful. John here, John Vu, he's gone on to be a radiologist, a really successful guy in Southern California. Naya Joy, who I know really well, she's had a fantastic career. Had her MBA. She's gone on to do some other really cool things since that. But again, these were students who just weren't in our pool before, and have now gone on to just absolutely thrive because of the way we communicated. So I I also love this. This is one thing that they do. So, like in college sports, a lot of times they'll say like have a national signing day. I don't know if you follow college sports, but I'm going to go to the Ohio State University and I like put the hat on, whatever. Questbridge does that for the students when they match to colleges for these are academic, institute admits into these colleges, and they share their story too. And so you get a lot of these profiles, these kids who are just so excited and so thankful and grateful to be here. And that's one way that Williams is working to recruit students who are deeply deserving, deeply talented, who might not otherwise find their way here. We're doing all sorts of other things as well. Liz Creighton, who's now the dean of admission and financial aid, and was a contemporary of mine as a student. She talks about our approach is now need seeking. So, and need blind is one way to think about it. Hey, whoever applies, we don't consider how much they can pay. We'll just admit sort of who we want, and if they need money, we'll give it to them. Need seeking is going after these students in that way I was just talking about. And we are now in a really exciting position, and I'd be happy to talk more about this if you want. As I mentioned, the All Grant program a couple of years ago, that our financial aid program, I would say it's one of not only the most generous, but the most thoughtful financial aid programs in the country. Insofar as we're doing the All Grant, not just to be generous. I think that's on the student side. Oh, wow, this is great. I don't have to do all these things. But we're doing it so all students can take full advantage of everything here, really to level the playing field so that, earning either in the summer or during the term time doesn't constrain a student from the choice and having the freedom to pick a tutorial class or to do a team or to do an internship, et cetera. So really thinking about what does it mean that every student all 2,000 students could take full advantage of everything we offer, and watching out for those hidden costs. So it's incredible. Students are reporting just really, really higher levels of risk taking in academic and extracurricular risk taking as a result, and pursuing opportunities. So really cool and something I'm just really proud of to have been associated with.
That's obviously exciting. You showed a slide about some of the projects or buildings that are going on, the WICMA and the well-being or the athletic. Do you want to talk a little bit more how those projects are coming along?
I'd love to. I'll start with the athletics project, which is a little further out, but is really it's going to be big. So you're hopefully going to be hearing a lot about this. I think a lot of folks, when they think about quote athletics, it's very much varsity teams. And I was here, a lot of us did recreational athletics and club sports and stuff like that. But it was really centered on varsity teams. Clearly, what we know though is that being active, as a young person, carries benefits throughout your entire life. As is being part of a team, as is being competitive. I mean, these are all things that matter. And so, as we're thinking about athletics facilities, we're thinking about them both as facilities that can serve our varsity teams at the highest levels of excellence. We want to be competing, at the top of our conference and in the nation, in what we do, but also that are designed in a way that benefit the entire student body. And so that's what we're calling it, the Athletics and Wellbeing Initiative. And it's largely going to be focused on facilities, but also programs. And I have a couple slides here to share. I say how we got there. This is kind of how we got there. One second. This is unfortunately how we got there, in a way. So this is Town Fieldhouse, which several years ago, unfortunately, it came down. It just structurally just wasn't sound anymore, and came down. And we were working on a plan, but before that. But this prompted and really spurred on our thinking. And so our attitude has been, let's look at this comprehensively. And we've hired a firm to work with us to think hard about the program that we want to have, what kinds of opportunities we want to have for students, both on teams and recreational users and general fitness users, et cetera. Where do we want to site those buildings relative to the rest of campus? And then start planning if we're going to make changes and improvements on what timeline can we do that. I hope that we'll have lots to share in a few months. You can sort of see this is our timeline, and we're down in the bottom right corner now. We're getting close to the board having a readout of this work, and we'll share that broadly with the alumni community. But my guess is it's going to recommend a phases of work over probably a decade or more in improvements. And I think that most of our teams will benefit directly with a new facility, just that's team specific, or indirectly through fitness facilities, et cetera. One project that is already underway, because Town Fieldhouse went out, this is what we're calling the Multi-Purpose Recreation Center. This is almost just behind my house. It's going up. It's big, but this is right behind the tennis courts. So there's some pictures that kind of situate you to where that is. This will be a short term, so let's say short term could be 5 to 7 years or more. We'll see. Stand in for the field house. So the track and field team will be able to practice here. There'll be a track. There'll be some tennis courts to start. The climbing wall, which a lot of students in the outing club use, that'll be here, as well as recreational use. And long term, if and when we build a new indoor track, this building would be primarily used for indoor tennis. Throughout the year. So that's sort of a first phase. Again, there's going to be lots more to share. This will be a sizable investment for the college, again, over a long period of time. But part of it is that we've been a little we're behind on investing in projects like this, in capital improvement in the athletics and recreation space, and now it's time to catch up.
Our class is going to celebrate its 60th reunion when we hear that they'll inaugurate the new Williams College Museum of Art. Can you tell us how that's coming along?
Yeah,
away, but we like to know.
I'm so excited, and it's great that your reunion will coincide with the planned opening of the building that spring. That will be also the centennial of the art museum at the college. So Williams will have had an art museum, dedicated art museum for 100 years. And this is a lot. This is a project, at least 10 years or longer in the making. Williams is, very fortunate for a long time to have collected some incredible objects. I mean, we have a fantastic art collection, but more than that, of course, we are a place of teaching in the arts. I don't know how many of you took art history, but my guess is it's actually show of hands in your Zoom. I mean, it's one of those sort of quintessential liberal arts disciplines, and we have the faculty to do it well, and we still have the faculty to do it well. And our hope is that we'll always have the faculty to do that well as sort of a prism into understanding the world. So we have great teachers. We have fantastic artwork. That would be enough. But even more than that is we have lots of other faculty members in other disciplines who now want to use this collection. So this is a fascinating development over 10, 15 years, is that we have, I think, nearly every department now uses part of the collection to teach one or more classes. So you can imagine the obvious ones, anthropology or something like this. But we have computer scientists using the collection. We have biologists using the collection, et cetera, et cetera. In really novel ways. We have great art historians who are working with them to think, how can you bring your work to life through an art collection? So I'll share a couple things here so you can see what it looks like. One sec. This is a great quote. This is actually from the current art museum director, Pam Franks. And I like the way she talks about it as sort of a laboratory for exploring the life-changing possibilities of engaging with art. I like that. Maud often talks about it as sort of a facility akin to what like Sawyer Library is for the social sciences and humanities, or what lab sciences buildings are for the sciences. Really a special place, but focused on leveraging our collection for teaching. Which is exciting. And we do it in all sorts of ways throughout the year. This is actually on the left, the top left is a computer scientist with the hat on there. teaching with the collection in one of his classes. These are students preparing the collection actually to be moved into a new facility on the top right. And on the bottom right, those are students who are participating in something called our Walls program, which maybe some of you have heard of, but it allows students to borrow a piece of art for a semester and put it on their wall in their dorm room. These are like, really nice pieces of art, but the idea of sort of getting comfortable with and getting excited about enjoying art. So this is a rendering of what the new museum will look like. And the spot, if you'll remember, where the old Williams Inn was at the Rotary in the center of Williamstown, this will be on that site. And prep is already going. The site's already being dug out and starting. And this is what we'll have with the curvature of the roof meant to evoke the mountains, certainly the background. What's really exciting about this project, besides the fact that it's going to house our entire collection in the facility and it'll all be accessible, this should be one of the most sustainably designed art museums in the country the minute it opens, possibly the most, given the material choices, the heating and cooling systems, all of that. We're designing it absolutely to be a model for what art museums and museums can look like in terms of their carbon footprint. Here's just from the top view, sort of what will look like, the configuration. Everything in sort of the back, sort of at the top of this picture, those will be mostly galleries. That's the sort of seeing the art and engaging with the art part. The bottom right-hand corner, those are the study spaces for classrooms. As I mentioned, faculty across the college using it. And then there'll be space for an auditorium and a cafe in the bottom left. Just some pictures of what the lobby, this is the lobby, what it'll look like. That's all mass timber construction. That is sort of a centerpiece element of the sustainable design. There are a handful of other museums that are using mass timber this way, but this will be one of the sort of biggest and boldest. We're really excited about that. This is, what a gallery will feel like, really open into a central courtyard. I think I have one more here. This is sort of the entryway into the student study space. Absolutely taking full advantage of the natural beauty of this area. Like the Clark, if you've been to the Clark, anyone's been there since the Tonawanda extension was completed. Again, synergy between sort of art and nature, absolutely the core of this project too.
And with that substantial contribution to the Clark, Williamstown has become a center of art.
Doubling down. I mean, I already were and going to be even more. If you hadn't heard, it was an extraordinary gift received by the Clark, announced maybe a few months ago. That's both objects, sort of early European art, a lot of sculpture, as well as gifts to house those objects and display them, and curatorial support. I mean, it's like a once in a lifetime for any kind of museum to receive all of that. And the hope is that will open on roughly the same timeline to the public as our museum. So let's fingers crossed that the summer when you guys are back for your 60th, you're going to have an art-filled summer.
Big time. Well, one more area you might want to cover a little more, the post-50th reunions.
Absolutely.
Very interesting to us, and particularly what's coming up for our 60th and what the thinking is on those reunions.
Absolutely. And I'd say, I mentioned before, sort of as one of the groups that we're thinking really hard about, post-50th is one. And frankly, a lot of you told me, you said, hey, look, we want to be involved and we want to be engaged. And we want to do things with the college still in bigger ways. Don't just let us fall off a cliff after our 50th. We're now sort of answering the what and the how of that. One of the pieces of that is ensuring that your reunion experience is the reunion experience that you want to have. And I was actually mentioning that maybe to Alan and Harry, we were chatting the other day that the year after your 55th, 68 decided to have a standalone celebration in the old CDE, which was the for their 55th, which was the historic home of the 50th reunion. So I think we are very open to the 60th as well being your experience. And we've moved in alumni engagement to having class managers who work not just on the alumni fund side, but who work with all the class officers, et cetera, to support that kind of programming. To we have class specific kinds of engagements and activities that we want to support that with you in partnership. So that's absolutely where we're going. Is again staying true to who we are, but also honoring the fact that we only have so many spaces on campus and so many people, et cetera. Recognizing too that there are synergies will build in to that. But suffice it to say, post 50th is a growing space for us, and we're excited about that.
Well, that's terrific. I'm sure next 2 years will be actively involved in that thought process and development. So, I know you want to do something unique to these Zoom sessions and address us as a class, and I'm sure we're not shy. We'd be happy to answers. You asked the questions, and many of us will contribute.
Yeah, I did, and several of you have joined. I know there's a working group. Some alumni had raised their hand, sort of around on either side of the 50th reunion, to sort of take the pulse of classmates. And some of you joined those sessions, and I think there might be one more still tomorrow. But opportunities for us to get feedback sort of from alumni is essential, and we're not going to build something that you aren't excited about. So I have a couple questions, and I thought I could and Harry, you told me this is good. Take hands, put comments into chat, etc. I actually want to record these, so I'm going to take notes as well as in chat. I will copy them out of the chat and share them with my colleagues. So what do you think is best, Harry? A little mix. We can open up the floor.
Yeah, we're only one screen, so I think we can see everybody's hand.
Good.
Otherwise, you can use the react button and raise your hand. But
perfect. Okay.
And Mark, we're recording this, so you can come to this section and not have to take notes and spend your time.
Even better. Thank you. Probably AI can do that, right, Larry? You can teach me how to do that with AI. Well, let me share this. So here's my first question. In addition to your own reunions, what alumni activities have you enjoyed the most in the past, and what was it about them that you enjoyed the most? So I'll take that one away and love people to jump in and share anything that comes to mind.
I just jump quickly. What I thought before is several of our large gatherings in Williamstown was the smaller gatherings we had a year or two before the actual 5-year reunion. I mean, 5 years is a lot. And at this point, 5 years is getting to be even more. So small group gatherings amongst our classmates, I think, is a good thing.
I think that, Harry, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. And one of the other things that was fun during the process of preparing for our 50th was interacting with classes that were around us. Because with a 5-year gap, you don't get a chance to see some of those other classes. And it's hard to figure out ways of doing that, Mark, but that's something that really meant a lot, I know, to me and to some of us, in terms of seeing some of the leaders and other classmates who were close to us, but not in our class, and people that we really enjoyed at Williams. And that's sort of the process of every 5 years. And so I think the invitations that have been sent out recently in the last couple of years of inviting alumni back for a particular weekend, and it doesn't matter necessarily what class you were in, but for a period of classes, say a 10-year stretch, really makes a difference. And I think that's really something that is a very nice feeling when you get a chance to see some of the people from other classes.
That's great. Thanks, Huff.
Mark, I don't know whether they're still doing it. You're doing it. I can remember going to a president's forum which was a group of invitation across classes to come back for a weekend with various discussions and input. I was able to go to one of those. That was extremely meaningful, exactly what Huff is saying. You got input from others. You got the college got to listen, listen provocative. You got to visit professors and others.
Thank you.
You know, Bob Baer said he was going back to a Flaming Williams weekend. I don't know exactly how that fits. Maybe that's part of what Larry's talking about.
A little different, a little more focused on students and the lived experience on campus, but really faculty staff as well. But could there be an alumni role in that? Possibly. Bob has been a supporter of activities like that here, and part of why he has come back. But yeah, okay, this is good. Intergenerational things I'd be interested in, and maybe I'll go to the next one, just looking at the time, because maybe this will prompt I'd say some new thoughts as well. So what kinds of activities would you like to see Williams offer more of in the future? And how important is it that these events are class specific or age specific, sort of cohort to what you just talked about, Huff, specific, or that they are general alumni, all call alumni from class of 2025 soon to anyone else?
Mark, this is David McCarran.
Hey, David.
It's always struck me is this college puts out, I would say, cohorts of professionals in different areas. It could be politics, it could be architecture, medicine, basic science. And I think to look at some convenings that bring those cohorts together across classes, which might be very interesting for students to see how these careers evolve and the interaction between them.
Thank you.
Mark, I would second that with David, and a great time to do it is at a major reunion, and the college support getting people from each class to have around cohorts on the stage as you do with other classes. It'd be a great way to do that.
That's a nice idea. Thank you. Ted?
Yeah, I think rather than the word activities, I've always said that the equity capital of Williams is in the relationships that the alumni have. And I think there's a great opportunity that's not capital intensive to use the relationships of our class and other classes to really have impact at Williams. For example, this thing, our relationship with the Institute of Human and Machine Cognition in Pensacola, Florida, where we've had 18 summer paid interns since 2018, 13 of which are international. Bangladesh, Ho Chi Minh City, all over the world. And that's a way to leverage the alumni. It's very fulfilling for the alumni.
Yeah.
And I think it's very impactful for the college students, which is really what it's all about anyway.
Thanks for sharing, and thanks for all of that you've done to enable those experiences for the students. Incredibly special. Thank you, Ted. Any other thoughts on this one? And I'll leave my email as well if you don't have it. If you have further thoughts, we can let these percolate a little bit. Maybe I'll ask my last one, and I'm expecting Ron to have. Go ahead. Sorry. Please.
One other thing, Mark, was just, and we're talking about different areas, David. I think you really hit upon something, but the other thing is to offer a weekend of poetry or a weekend of art where there's a particular area, like in modern art or what have you, and to offer that to the alumni. In a way that it's a weekend back, and they have the opportunity, and you kind of help in terms of setting that up for $1 amount so that meals are provided for and things like that. And I think that those really stimulate people to come back and to be involved. And then you have, with student involvement in some of that, really makes it, gives you really a sense of what's going on at the college at the present time, but also that interest that has been there as a lifetime interest, which I think is really interesting that a lot of us have developed some of those lifetime interests out of college courses that we took.
Yeah, absolutely.
The new wing
Mark,
Clark will be really a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
To get into
That's absolutely, no, that's true. I'm curious. As I was listening to John and thinking about virtual opportunities as well. I mean, clearly, you guys are doing it in a profound way as a class. I mean, I'm blown away and inspired, frankly, by what you guys are doing. So sharing your stories with each other, learning about each other's lives, and through each other, learning all sorts of facets of human knowledge and experience. It's amazing. But what about in other ways? I mean, your class can continue to do this, but are there other ways that you might like to do virtual programs with other alumni outside of your class, or with folks at the college, or does that seem maybe not as I don't know, not as special, not as meaningful?
I'd like to pick up on something,
please,
that runs through what you do and the years of reunion. One of the things that I've become impressed with in my career in medicine is the older you get, the more you know. And not everybody may agree with you, but you bring more of a life experience. And there are so many people from this college that have had fascinating careers, and you don't have to devote a session to one of those, but to begin to pull that kind of information together, I think it's incredibly powerful, potentially for the students and for the college, because I think there are things percolating here that I'm not even sure the college is necessarily aware of, because there's an aspect of Williams that's focused a lot on certain components of our society. And yet, as we're learning with AI, the future is in science. Now, I'm not making a pitch for science. Actually, I am. But we should try to dig through the garden and find those things.
Thank you. It's great. Thank you.
Well, I think we've spent a great hour, and I think we should follow up with Mark on some more of our thoughts on whether there are activities or other experiences we'd like to see to work together with the college and our classes. We should follow up on that. But there should be a few minutes now where we all can ask Mark questions about his wonderful.
How do we reach you? How do we reach you? What's your email?
Oh, I'll put it in the chat if it's okay, and I can say it as well. It's MROBERTS@williams.edu. So here you go. Just take the ON off my last name and my first initial. So mroberts@williams.edu.
Thanks.
Don, I call him Mark Roberts for years.
Yeah.
Was that an
And I still talk to you, Larry.
Effort by the college to eliminate the ON? Says Bodenson.
You just be a Bodens. I actually am one of the few in the proud. I still have my email address from working here 20 years ago. Now everyone else who starts, it would be like MWR643 or some strange thing like that. So I still cling. I don't get my ON back, but I'm living with my M Roberts. I'm okay with that.
Mark, I'd like to stay in my usual lane and make you an offer.
Okay.
If you would come out with your family, Ted and I would have a seminar for you on how to be more charismatic and represent the college with more enthusiasm. Seriously, we can't, you are just an inspiration as a person and a representative of the college. On a serious question, Denver in particular and some of the outlying areas is getting hit with ICE going into schools, going into healthcare facilities, going into churches. And I just wondered, surely you must have various students of various status, immigration status, dreamers, etc., especially with the new emphasis on, less means students. Have you adopted any policy if ICE shows up, either individually or others at the college, or talked about it?
I'm not close to this, Larry. I've heard a briefing along with, I don't know, 50 or so other, administrators at the college a week or so ago. That was largely focused on the student facing staff. So I'm not very close to what we're preparing or not. Clearly, we'll comply with the law. I mean, that's always the rule. We'll comply with the law. I think we're being well prepared, though, in terms of just like any other institution, to help people understand their legal rights and civil rights, et cetera, and what the resources are available to them. I don't have much more of an answer than that based on what I know now, and I'm not in any way trying to be cagey. It's just not a space that I'm pretty far from that in the college, but certainly it's something that every college, every high school, and others are having to think about right now. And I know it's being talked about here.
Just so you know that we've had 16 various ICE raids on schools, healthcares, and churches here in Denver, including the Denver Public Schools, that they stopped at a bus stop with children and with parents and took 3 or 4 parents in because they looked like they were Hispanic, that were citizens. So just preparing for people, the fact that you have to have a warrant if you come in a building and things like that is now a topic you'd never expect before because of some of the changes. That's why I asked.
No, that's right. And those were the kinds of things that were being communicated to the entire staff, and understanding sort of who the points of contact would be if such activities happened. We're clearly abreast of the law. Yeah. Thank you, though.
Harry, I think Bill Condeno had his hand up.
Bill?
Well, there's another major issue. I mean, DEI. I noticed there was a box for Vice President DEI. What's happening on that score?
So I'd say, very early days in terms of Williams making any changes to sort of how we operate. Fundamentally, we believe that the DEI function at the college serves us well, and sort of within all sorts of programs and policies that have existed for a long time in terms of promoting equity across the college, and that's how we've crafted that space. If it's a fast-moving space, legally and politically is one thing. If it's fast-moving space in terms of policy and the law, that's one thing. Politically, we're very comfortable, again, operating within the law, but we're very, very comfortable with where we are. We want Williams to be the most inclusive college we can possibly be, and that's so much of the focus of what that office does. Clearly, we want Williams to be an equitable space. I know that that's a fraught term, as is the term of diversity as well. But I think we believe at our core that talent is found across the human population, and our opportunity and our challenge is to bring that talent together at Williams. I'll share, Bill, that when I started here again in admissions 20 years ago, I think we were getting really good at recruiting on the student side and on the faculty side to some extent, better at recruiting a, quote, diverse population to Williamstown. I think we were pretty awful on the inclusion side. I think we've tried to make market change in that space, but it's not something we do in our most of us do in our lived lives, sort of our public lives, our lived private lives, naturally, and sort of expect 18 to 22-year-olds to do that kind of sort of inclusive work when they're inclusion work when they're coming from such vastly different backgrounds, socioeconomically, racially, demographically, in terms of citizenship, et cetera. It's an important function. It has been served a really, really important purpose at the college, and we're proud of that work. But again,
I hope it continues. You may just have to find some different terminology.
It's a fast-moving space, and of course, politically, it's a very fast-moving space politically, and we'll see how it shakes out in terms of what that means for us. But we're proud of where we are right now.
Congratulations. Ted, you have a question? You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me, Mark?
Yes, Ted. Hey.
In your own remarks, you used the word culture 3 times, and we all recognize that Williams has many pockets of excellence, whether it's the academic side, the computer science, athletics, art. In the 10 years you've been so closely involved, how would you characterize the changes that bring us today in the culture of Williams College? How would you describe the culture of Williams College?
Let me think about it. It's a great question. It really is. I think a lot about this. I think a lot about when I was a 18-year-old, and maybe you all think about when you were, a young person, and sort of what appealed to you about, this place or other choices that you made in your life. And so often it is those sort of, I say, intangibles, but the feel of a place and what's reinforced, and how it gets reinforced, right? I could not have imagined how different I would have found the different colleges I ended up looking at once I got on campus. But there was something about the culture here, which I would say was defined by curiosity, by caring, by humility, that attracted me to Williams and that keeps me here. I think those are still fundamentally important to the place. I've actually spent a lot of time the last couple of years thinking about the brand is an awful way to put it, but that's kind of how we think about it. Sort of how do we project out who we are into the world? And I've always said there are a lot of colleges out there, including one of our rivals, who often think about themselves as a collection of individuals who are all individually talented and successful. I think Williams, we think about ourselves as a collective entity more frequently. Not to say, again, that we're not a community of individuals who have their own talents and interests, but I really believe that we're something different in terms of our collective impulse. We're much more of a team first and an individual first. And it's reflected in how we talk about ourselves. We put class forward. We volunteer in waves, in big waves. When we talk about our successes, they're we successes very frequently. Is that eroding? I sometimes do worry. I think for a number of reasons, having these interns with me in January is really eye-opening in a lot of ways. And I tried my darndest to remind them of the things that I thought were really special here that they should take advantage of. Of course, this is the COVID generation. Talk about disruptive in every single way. These are all digital natives, we call them. They grew up with a device in their hand. They spend a lot of time transacting information that way. So I asked them, here's a question I asked them, Ted, that was kind of like a barometer for me. I said, this is always like my proxy. How many times do you sit down at a meal with friends in a given week? And I don't mean just like the same, like different people, and sit down at a meal and intentionally focus and have a conversation and get to know people on that level. Because that's, to me, the whole point. Bill, a little bit back to your question. You think about what's the point of bringing these 2,000 people here for this residential immersive experience? That is it. It's learning with and through each other. And one of them said almost every night. One of them said, 3 times a week. And one said, it depends on the week, kind of thing. And I scratched my head because I thought, I think I did that 2 to 3 times every single day, et cetera. Now, then they told me, well, I'm doing all sorts of other things to connect with students, et cetera. But a lot of the foundations that were core to my experience, and I sometimes joke that I majored in the newspaper. I majored in the record. I spent 40 hours a week on it, as a student. It didn't matter to my academic record, but it mattered a heck to my professional success. So in terms of sort of who we are, I believe those are still the boulders of what this community is, and that they still project out to students. But students care deeply about the outcomes, and families. I mean, these are not inexpensive places for families who are paying full fare. They're looking hard at the outcomes. This can't be a leisure experience, and the pre-professionalism, I worry, is creeping in and maybe crowding out some of that, and maybe a little bit nostalgic this way, but creeping out a little bit of that. So it's up to all of us to reinforce that. One thing I did in January, we had a gift made a couple of years ago that we were able to take advantage of during winter study. And we had a couple community dinners, 100 people, A third of them were winter study instructors, alumni who would come back to teach, and a few other friends, faculty and staff friends. And then 2/3 of them were students. And I said, no, is dinner with strangers. You just put randomly at a table and have at it. Wildly successful. And I think that students, when they're reawakened to those possibilities, they fall right back into the things that made our Williams experiences so special.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
John Huffnagel, you have a question as well?
I did, but it was just got answered, because basically when we visited earlier, Mark, you were talking about the eating and the community thing, and really my concern was, what did COVID do to that sense of community, and is that recovering or not recovering? And I think it's really changed the way people view their experiences.
You're absolutely right. We just graduated the class that, so last year's class were the ones who graduated high school. Their senior year would have been the COVID year 2020. So the class of 2024 had that experience. So we're now just on the other side of that, but they were still juniors. Absolutely colors their experience. But as do, I mean, that was maybe, John, I'd say a deep imprint, like that was a particular deeply forceful moment. But there's a trend from sort of disassociation. Again, they spend so much time on the sort of the digital devices, and it's almost unfathomable to me. They tell me how much time they spend. So what are you doing on there? But that's absolutely how they build relationships, et cetera. Not to say the human part doesn't matter, but that is very different. And there's absolutely a like I said, a creeping pre-professionalism. So you put that all together, and then sort of with the mixture of COVID, it was deeply disruptive for the students. And I think students were generally unhappy for several years. Imagine your golden age of your young life was interrupted that way so fundamentally. I hope we'll get a lot of it back. One hope, one of my interns did tell me there's some device that you can buy for your cell phone. He called it a brick, and I had never heard of this, but I'm going to look into it. And you put it in your room, and it's like you can't unlock your phone, like all the apps on your phone that might be the distracting ones, unless you go back to that physical place and like touch it. So you program your phone in the morning, touch this little thing, this little coder, and then you're off campus. Well, you can't check the social media and all this. And it was giving me hope that this one intern said that, that's a good thing. And a lot of us are doing that. A lot of us don't want this. We want to be more human, and oh, good. Maybe we're coming out of it in a powerful way. But that's anecdotal.
Well, the college is going to face a real challenge in about 15 years, because you're going to have students who were 2 and 3 years old at the time of COVID. Impact on their psychological development, educational, is lasting. I mean, the brain is pliable then, and we haven't seen. I mean, I think we're seeing for sure some of the effects when you look at these educational scores coming out of high school.
Yeah, you're right.
And places like Williams are going to have to figure out, is there a way to, if you can see it, mitigate it?
Yeah. That's a good point, David. Actually, the group I worked with at the Harvard, the Center for Education Policy Research, has been studying and trying to quantify those learning losses and sort of the recoveries now, even years on, and they're still not there. We're still lagging behind what those benchmarks should be. There's no sort of silver bullet to get that recovery back. No, you're right, and the socio-emotional development part as well. My kid went to Zoom kindergarten. Zoom kindergarten, what is that, right? Yeah. Just say it, and it's still sad and funny, but sad.
Well, I'd like to, on behalf of the group here, thank you for a wonderful conversation. The breadth of experience and activity and what you're doing and have done is terrific for us and for the college. And you're going to celebrate your 25th reunion when we celebrate our 60th. So we got to all think about how we're going to be together in a couple of years.
No, we got to think about how to crash their party.
I don't know. I might say the other way around. Over the last couple of reunions, I might be coming to you guys.
You have a big tent, Mark, and we'll be there.
That's true. Well, you're all invited. I'm not planning it yet in any way, my 25th, but you're all invited anyway. No, guys, thank you so much. It's really been a joy to see you all, and thank you for your engagement. And more than that, it gives me so much joy. I for a long time was doing Zooms like this with my friends, every month or so, every couple months, after COVID, and we've fallen off a little bit. And this has given me some inspiration to get back to that practice. We still text, 7 or 8 of my friends who I'm closest with. We text almost every day. We have a loop of things, personal lives, professional lives, just world events, etc. Constant texting, and we got to get on screen together more. So thank you for that inspiration too. I'm going to write them soon and get something scheduled.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for
Thank
everything.
you very
Really
much.
just done a wonderful job, and we just have enjoyed your friendship over the years and your commitment to us. It's really been a very nice feeling to know that we've got somebody at the school who is a friend, but also has been committed to listening. And you do a wonderful job of listening, and that's something we really appreciate, and we really honor and thank you.
Thanks, John. That means a lot. Thank you.
And Mark,
this is your college. Oh, go ahead.
Point of personal privilege. We'd be remiss if we didn't apologize for the 20 or so that signed up that didn't come, and for the rest of our class. They really missed a really valuable evening.
It's recorded. It's recorded.
And hopefully, when Alan sends it out, the recording, that will give an extra push for everybody to watch.
Thanks, Larry. I'd say anyone who's gotten to this point in the recording, shoot me an email or give me a call and catch up if we haven't talked in a while. I'd love to talk to you. But thank you. I just say I really mean this, and I know it's a little silly, but for those alums who get to work here, those of us who get to do this, just remember, this is your college. We happen to be the people working in Williamstown, but never hesitate to reach out if there's a way we can help you connect. That's what we're here for. You got my email now, and get my phone number. Anytime I can be helpful, please call.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Harry.
Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Now, Mark has agreed to stay on for a few minutes. If anybody'd like to stay with us, a few more